Like the video and subscribe to our channel right now and get 1 week of amazing luck. There are many young children and teenagers who have been unexpectedly sentenced to life in jail. Yes, these young people have given up playing at arcades, playing video games, and having fun with buddies for the harsh reality of prison and discussing prison food. Why did this occur, and what caused them to take that terrible turn of events? Here are 10 young kids who are decaying in jail. Number 10. Bever brothers. These brothers gained the limelight when they committed an awful crime that resulted in taking the lives of 5 members of their own family. Michael was 16 years old and Robert was 18 when the crime was committed. Their town was in utter disbelief at how such seemingly innocent-looking teenagers could do such evil. In court, Robert, the oldest brother, confessed to the judge that he had always wanted to become a serial murderer and grinned evilly, like a devil. Robert instantly entered a guilty plea, allowing the jury to conclude that they were dealing with a person who was mentally ill and had no remorse or conscience for his acts. He didn't even try to fight for his freedom, which gave their community shivers. The judge condemned Robert to life in prison since it was clear that he possessed insidious behavior and lacked sympathy, and he also gave his younger brother 5 life sentences. Many members in the courtroom that day stated that they felt sorry for the person who going to share a prison cell with Robert as their lives could be in danger. Unfortunately, no one was able to comprehend the brothers' reasons, which just serves to highlight how vicious people can be. Number 9. Antonio Barbeau. Although Antonio killed his 78-year-old grandmother Barbara Olson in a horrible deed in 2012, the following information will make you shudder. After paying a visit to her in Sheboygan, Antonio suddenly pinned her to death with a hammer and a hatchet. When the courts began to receive more and more proof, Antonio was left with no choice but to face the consequences. He suddenly entered a no-contest plea to the deliberate homicide, indicating to him that he should accept the judgment of the court while denying his own culpability at the same time. His legal representative attempted to convince the court and jury that his client suffers from mental illness. When Antonio was speaking to the court, he did not show much regret, instead sporting a stern face. He said, "I am not very good at expressing my feelings. I know I took someone's mother, grandmother, sister, and even friend, and I have messed up the lives of many because of my actions." Immediately following the court's trial, he was referred to a psychologist. He claimed that 10-year-old Antonio had experienced a great deal of trauma in the past, all of which were caused by a vehicle accident when he was young and resulted in a decline in his brain's capacity to make important decisions. But the judge showed no remorse for doing so. He was sentenced to life in prison with the prospect of parole after 35 or more years. Number 8. Aaron Caffey. The name Aaron Caffey will always be associated with an awful tragedy that shook the entire world. Aaron, who was born on July 26, 1991, in Texas, seemed to lead a typical upbringing in a small town. She was raised in Alba, Texas, by her parents Penny and Terry Caffey, and her 2 younger brothers, Matthew and Tyler. Their family appeared to be normal on the outside, but sinister forces were at work beneath this facade. At the young age of 16, Aaron Caffey set out on a trip that would have a lasting impact on her life and the lives of those around her. Aaron, who had a thing on Charlie Wilkinson and was determined to break her parents' severe rules, came up with a vile scheme to get away from them. In the early hours of 1 March 2008, Aaron Charlie and 2 of his friends, Charles Wade and Bobby Johnson, sneaked into the Bistro family house equipped with weapons. Their goals were unsettling, to put it mildly. When Aaron's family was sleeping, they brutally attacked them. Aaron's mother Penny, as well as her 2 younger brothers Matthew and Tyler, were murdered in the heinous attack. The silence was broken by the sound of gunfire, eternally honoring that terrible night. Terry, Aaron's father, suffered many gunshot wounds but survived the attack. Once, Aaron, an innocent sister and daughter, had just volunteered to take part in an unthinkable act of violence. After the horrific deed, Aaron Caffey and the other men fled the area, but their efforts to avoid capture were unsuccessful. The group was eventually apprehended by police and taken to face the consequences of their acts. Despite being a youngster, Erin was tried as an adult due to the seriousness of the offense. She pleaded guilty in court to 3 counts of capital offense. When the specifics of the crime were exposed in court, the weight of her guilt was obvious and the audience was filled with awe. In the end, the judge handed down a punishment appropriate for the nature of the crime committed. 2 consecutive life sentences with no possibility of parole were given to Erin Caffey. In addition, she received an additional 25 years in prison for her involvement in her father Terry's attempted felony. The case of Erin Caffey is still in the news, making many people question what drove him to commit such a horrific crime. There is debate over how much her lover Charlie Wilkinson impacted her and the psychological factors that may have contributed to her desire to take part in the murder of her own family. Number 7. Petrie Curti. This 13-year-old English citizen was given a 12-year prison term for the heinous killing of Glynis Bensley. A camera system on the streets of England captured Petrie attacking a lady, knocking her to the ground, and repeatedly stamping his foot in her face. Petrie then dashes to a park in the West Midlands and tells his pals about what he did, defining the incident as an achievement. Glynis's family and friends, as well as the rest of the town, were in agony over the sinister act of homicide. When Petrie's lawyer argued his case, they tried to convince the courts that Curti was a sufferer of serious childhood trauma and difficulties. They claimed that he had experienced a lack of parental figures and authority in the past. No one actually ever taught him how to behave properly, and when Curti got into trouble, his parents didn't discipline him, they just pointed the finger at others. Curti's defense attorney claimed that as a result, he never developed into a responsible person in life and avoided taking responsibility for any of his activities. Curti even claimed that he mistakenly thought Glynis to be another man rather than murdering her on purpose, but that explanation was insufficient because his prior convictions for several violence and theft offenses reduced his chances of being found innocent. These stories demonstrate how failing to appropriately assist a juvenile offender can have devastating effects on not just the offender's life but also the lives of all who cross his path, creating a harmful feedback loop. Although Curti was confused as to why he would be spending more than a decade in prison, he had plenty of time to reflect on his acts because the judge ultimately deemed him a menace to society and sentenced him to 12 years in prison. Number 6. Roxana Sikorsky. No one in the court could accept Roxana's misdeeds as true. We will never forget that day since she had successfully carried out her elaborate plan to take the life of her younger brother. She said in court that she had unexpectedly woken up in the middle of the night and had a notion that if she killed her younger brother, it would cause chaos for her parents. Even though her deeds were purely terrible, she would enjoy them when they took her mother to court. If she is given an adult term, her mother, Laureen Sikorsky, told the judge that the harsh conditions of prison would only destroy her frail life. The psychologist then revealed that she had reactive attachment disorder, an attachment condition that prevents her heart from showing another person sentimental affection or concern. The judge sentenced Roxana to 10 to 20 years in prison after hearing her sob in court and even apologized to everyone for her horrible plan. Because anyone could become her next victim, the court determined that keeping her behind bars was in the best interests of society. Court wants to use Roxana as an example for all American youth who could consider hurting others in the future. Number 5. T.J. Lane. The main adversary of this tale was T.J., a 17-year-old who killed 3 classmates from Chardon High School and savagely harmed 3 more. According to a story that made national headlines, the argument between him and another kid on the bus is what allegedly caused him to become enraged. For some reason, the conflict had a significant psychological influence on T.J., and a few months later, he brought a gun to school and started shooting innocent people. Not only were 3 students killed, but 2 more suffered serious injuries, and the final student was left permanently paralyzed from neck to toe. Numerous police vehicles, including a SMART team, arrived at the location as soon as authorities learned of the happening, shocking the locals. Should he be charged as an adult or a juvenile was the main point of debate in the courts before the trial even began. You can see in this video that the trial was consistently worse than everything else. TJ appeared to have no regret for what he had done to society as he waved his middle finger in the court. Throughout his trial, TJ just smiled and acted as if it were no big issue. But what really infuriated the judge was that when he removed his dress shirt, he was sporting a white t-shirt bearing the words, "Killer," which left the victim's parents in the crowd furious. When TJ was given the option to express his regret and request even the tiniest chance of pardon, he just laughed and made numerous nasty remarks. The judge brutally punished him by handing TJ 3 life sentences in prison with no prospect of parole. Fortunately, the judge wanted to be clear that failing to respect society's beauty and its inhabitants would result in permanent punishment. Number 4. James Fairweather. James was given a 27-year jail sentence for his random serial murders, and something in his smile is just straight sinister. He killed 2 innocent people at random and held them while they slowly passed. A behavior that is exclusively insane. The first life that was taken was that of James Atfield. He got hit by Fairweather in March 2014, which resulted in severe brain damage. A few months later, Nahid Armenia, a brilliant Saudi Arabian student who was enrolled at one of the most prestigious universities in the world, the University of Essex in England, also passed away in his arms. He stood by with no remorse. What's especially disturbing is that he promptly revealed his wrongdoings after being apprehended by the police, acting as if he did not fear going to jail and explaining to the courts how he killed the 2 citizens step by step. Even more horrible than anything else, when James, then 15 years old and a student at Colchester Academy in the United Kingdom, presented the circumstances behind his crimes to the judge, he made every effort to lay the blame for his frequent bullying at school on his physical characteristics, his dyslexia, and the autistic problem he had developed, claiming that these factors contributed to his eventual rage-fueled outburst and those murders. He attempted to appeal the 27-year sentence using the following justifications in his youth as another factor, but the judge was sure about his crimes and intentions. Number 3. Jessica Carnline. She had killed 2 bystanders in a car crash into a hospital when she was only 17 years old. The scenes in the accompanying pictures were utterly horrible, as you can see. When it came time for her trial, she accepted the plea deal right away, and everyone could see from her facial expressions that she felt regret for her careless behavior. As the court spectators were outraged by what occurred, the proof was revealed. Proof revealed that Jessica was driving close to the Wyoming hospital when an unforeseeable accident caused her to drive into a vehicle, into the hospital sign, and then directly into the building, with shocking results. She struck them, killing 2 27-year-olds. In her car, investigators discovered an air duster can, leading them to believe that she had inhaled the alleged chemical. What they discover next will shock you. She acknowledged during the trial that she had inhaled the chemical to achieve the desired drunken, buzzed effect. The discovery of this truth did not support the judge's decision to express regret for Jessica because it suggested to the courts that Jessica's physical condition was identical to that of someone who had consumed alcohol. Additionally, checking the speedometer data revealed that Jessica was traveling more than 75 miles per hour on a typical street. Sadly, nobody was wearing a seatbelt. She was given a 12-plus-year prison sentence by the judge for acting irresponsibly. Jessica sobbed bitterly, expressing regret for the one choice that had so many people's lives permanently wrecked. Number 2. Sierra Halseth. Sierra, who was 16 years old, and her boyfriend, who was 18, were standing sternly in the court. During the trial, it was established that she had taken the life of her loving and innocent father, Daniel Halseth. Sierra committed a wicked crime when she and her partner repeatedly stabbed a man with a knife before wrapping him in a blanket and stuffing him in the trunk of his car. They intended to hide their tracks so they wouldn't be charged with murder. Could you imagine a daughter killing her own father, someone who had raised her since she was a young child? The courtroom atmosphere turned sour as the district lawyers presented the evidence. The couple was subsequently given a life sentence in prison with a slim chance of parole in 23 years by the judge. The evil intent behind their deeds and the calculated distaste of their crimes shattered the love of everyone significant in their vicinity. The life sentence imposed on them seemed to be reasonable. Sierra remained still for nearly an hour following the punishment as if she had no regrets at all. The scale of her boyfriend's misdeeds gradually began to sink in, taking control of his mental mentality as he realized he would never again see the light of regular civilization, while her lover had an entirely other emotion. After all of that, the true question is, what caused the murder of a father who was so adored by his children? Also, how could someone kill a member of their own family, let alone a father? Number 1. Nehemiah Grigo. Nehemiah, a 15-year-old, killed his parents as well as his 3 younger brothers and sisters. The judge imposed a 120-year prison term on him. In October of 2015, he made the unexpected decision to kill them by attacking them with a variety of weapons. No one in his community could comprehend this decision, and everyone was shocked because he seemed like a good kid. He said in court that he had a deep-seated animosity for his mother that had led him to act out that particular day. He stated, "I am sorry for taking our parents and our siblings. I wish I could take it back, but the reality is that I cannot." Unlike the other victims sentenced to life, he shows regret in his demeanor and in his words. He even apologized repeatedly for taking the lives of everyone he considered dear, according to many members of the jury, who also noted that he had a very sad expression. However, nobody is truly sure what the underlying reason was for the age he had towards his mother and what was going on in his mind. However, the court did have some sympathy for him since she made it clear that if he behaved well, he would be available for parole in 30 years.